Good morning. It's Saturday morning here in Rush City. In a little while, I'm going to go to a cooking class held by Diana Carlson. Some of my friends will be there, and we're going to learn how to do some cooking. But I would like to share with you my story about Laddie, the Arab horse that I ride. Years ago, I was traveling on my shoeing route in the Harris neighborhood. And Jeske Nordergraf, who was my veterinarian at that time, and who also owned Sunrise Equine, she had a clinic there. Um, she called me and she said, "Warren, are you anywhere close by?" And I said, "I am. Have you got some time?" And I said, "I think I can make some time. What's up?" Well, she said, "I got a 2-year-old Arab here, got a bad case of scratches on one pastern, and he's kind of a nasty kicker." She said, "I can tranquilize him, but they need to be able to treat him when they get him home." So anyway, I drove to her clinic, got out of the truck, and I must say I was smitten when I saw this horse. He was just a beautiful animal. Uh, so anyway, I go into the round pen where he was and took him in hand, and um, the thing that stood out about him, I could see very quickly, he had a very, very strong will. He was very confident in his ability to manage people, which he had been doing quite well. He kind of ran the farm. Anyhow, as I deciphered his actions and his attitude, I saw very quickly the very best thing for me to do with this horse, just lay him down and sit on him, instead of trying this and trying that and fooling around, because he was very, very confident in his ability to manage people. And I had to destroy that. I had to take his power away. So I tied up a front foot and I laid him down, sat on him for about 5 minutes. And when I do that, and sit on the horse, I just love on him and scratch him and pet him, talk to him. And one of the, or two objects of laying a horse down, in my view, is to show them you don't need to be afraid anymore. When you take a horse's feet away, you've taken everything he has. That's what he fights with, that's what he runs with. So it's kind of embarrassing to them. It's debilitating. It's kind of crushing. But I use that for my benefit and his. I know he feels that way. I get that. But I show him you don't need to be afraid of being vulnerable laying down like this. You're not going to get hurt, and you're going to have to deal with me. It's one of the ways that I can get a horse to hit a brick wall, where he has to deal with the truth. So anyway, I let Laddie up, and he was not the same horse that went down. I dropped the lead rope, walked to that back foot, picked it up, and held it, and the vet did her thing on that pastern, and he stood there just perfect. I heard somebody on the outside edge of the round pen who was watching, I heard somebody say, as I was letting Laddie get up from the ground, "Look at, he really likes Warren." And I knew that. I could tell that we had already had some kind of a bond going on. Okay, so in about 2 months, the lady that owned him called me, and she said, "My farrier is not getting along with this horse. Would you mind doing our farrier work?" So I began to trim Laddie, but my first trip there, she had 4 horses, and I had trimmed all 4 of them, and Laddie just stood perfectly relaxed. And she's writing out my check, and then she said, "Oh," she said, "I should tell you, when Laddie saw you get out of the truck, he nickered at you." And she said, "He doesn't even do that to me. I'm the one that feeds him." I said to her, "That's because somebody showed up in his life that gave him boundaries and did so in a way that was convincing and yet comforting." I established very quickly with Laddie, I'm in charge and I am your safe place. And I'm here to help you sort that all out. Laddie got that right away. He's an extremely intelligent horse. Well, anyway, I trimmed him for a couple of years. So when he was about 4, he wasn't broke yet. She said to me, I'm probably not going to ride this horse. I know you like him and I know he likes you. I will give him to you on the condition that you give him back if for some reason you can't keep him. Well, I was 73 years old at the time, and I said, well, let me think about it. So I did. I thought about it for a couple of days and told my wife about it, asked her to think about it, and she said it was okay with her if I would take Laddie. So I decided, yes, I'm going to take him. That was the beginning of a new journey for me. Because as I started to work with Laddie to break him to ride and so on, I saw very quickly this was the proverbial horse of another color. I was going to have to do some things differently than I was accustomed to doing. I had broke many horses in my life. Now, don't get upset about the word broke. I know that's not a good word nowadays, but it, to me, it's just training. Well, so Laddie joined me. I was on his back the second day he was there. We had a journey together that was absolutely remarkable. He needed me, but I needed him too. I needed to rethink a number of things in how to handle a horse and get along with a horse. Because he presented me with, what would I say, circumstances that I'd not seen before. He was just a different horse. His main characteristics were he really liked people. He was exceptionally bright and very quick, as quick as a cat. And he had a very strong will. He was his own man. So I had to learn to work through all of those things in ways that gave us a good outcome. After I'd had Laddie for probably 6 years, I had a custom. I would come riding into the barn, 40 by 60 shed there on one end, and ride down to the other end. I rode through a little gate that separated the tack and the hay from the free choice shelter that the horses had. And I would ride over to the tack, get off, and then I walk back and shut the little gate, and then I would take his tack off and maybe play with him with the ball in there for a while or something. And one day I came riding in and I thought, it's time to step this up a notch. So I got off of him, but I didn't go back and shut that gate, that small gate. And I took his tack off, took his bridle off. I said, Laddie, you stay here now. You just wait. And he knew those words. I had him long enough, and he knew. As soon as I turned my back, when he saw that open gate, he ran full speed. He was kicking dirt back. He ran out so fast. And he ran to the other end of the shed, and in the doorway, it was a very, very wide doorway, he spun around and looked at me. He had his ears up, and he kind of knew he was in trouble. I yelled at him. I took the whip and I slammed the ground, and I just threw an awful fit. Now, the reason I reacted like that is Laddie was not afraid. He was not confused. He was just being a bad boy. He was willfully doing what he knew he shouldn't do. So I really threatened him, bellered at him. He dropped his head and came trotting right back up to me. I petted him, told him, good boy, Laddie. That was very, very, very good choice. So after petting him a little bit and talking to him, I turned my back on him again. And when I turned my back, he was gone like a shot. He did the same thing. Got to the other end of the shed, and he spun around and looked at me. This time, I really threw a fit. If you would have been there, you would have thought I was really mad, like I wanted to kill him. I might have sounded like that, but that's not what was in my mind and heart. I really got after him, worse than the first time. This time he drops his head and he came cantering up to me. I did the same thing. I just petted him and acknowledged his obedience. And so then it was okay for a while. But one day I came riding in. This probably happened in about 2 weeks after that. I came riding in, and he had an edge on him, and I thought, he's going to run today. So I propped the whip up, and I was ready for him. And sure enough, when I turned my back on him, away he went. This time I grabbed the whip, was bellowing at him, slamming the whip on the ground, and this time I chased him, ran right after him. He slammed his brakes on so hard I almost ran into him. He spun around and faced me. I threw the whip away, ran backwards as fast as I could go, and he came running up to me, and he never tried it again. Now that seems counterintuitive. What horse is going to come to somebody that's scolding him and carrying on like that? That's because in many, many ways, I had proven to Laddie, I'm in charge and I am your safe place. He knew that about me. He knew that if he ran to me, it was going to be okay. Then later, a few months go by and something else happened that I can't explain. The house was up the hill a ways away from the barn, and I had just left the shop, was walking past the barnyard, and Laddie was standing there. And I didn't pay much attention to him. And I started to walk up the hill to the house, and for some reason I turned around and looked back at Laddie. And he was looking at me, directly at me, on high alert. It was very odd, because he knew who I was. I was baffled by his presentation. So I turned towards him and stepped towards him, and I says, "Hey, Laddie, what's up? You want to talk about something? I walked on down to the barnyard there, walked up to the fence, but I stayed on the other side. And he stepped up to me, but I didn't reach out to pet him, and I certainly did not give him a treat. And I just started talking nonsense, just talking about whatever, just to make some noise. Laddie stood there and listened to me talk for about 20 minutes. And I had to figure out what to think of to keep talking. Anyway, he'd stand there and his head was down and he was relaxed. He would yawn and he would look at me, and then finally he would turn and slowly walk away and go out to the pasture where his friend was. That happened 2 more times, exact same thing. Now, he may have been looking at me at other times like that, but I didn't see it. But those are the times I happened to see it. I can't explain that. I don't know what he was doing, but all I can tell you is he wanted to be with me and he wanted to listen to me talk. And all I did was mumble about mumbo jumbo. Told him what a nice boy he was and what a nice day it was and what I had for breakfast and on and on and on. But I wanted to share that with you because it shows what can happen between a horse and a person when you function with them in clarity. I left no doubt in Laddie's mind about any point I ever wanted to make with him. And I made sure I did it in a way that was, well, non-threatening, but it was kind of threatening. I guess what I could add here is over the years I had people ask me, say, Warren, why do the horses stand so quiet for you when you're shoeing them? And I said, there's 2 reasons. Number 1, they're afraid of me. Number 2, they're not afraid of me. It was my way of expressing that I let each horse know I'm in charge and I am their safe place. They're afraid of me in the same way I'm afraid of a policeman. Am I afraid of a policeman? Of course not. Would I think of going up and kicking him in the shins and trying to grab his gun? No, because I'm afraid of him. I hope you're seeing that. It's a deep, deep respect. I was afraid of my dad, but I wasn't afraid of him. The reason I was afraid of him is I knew he meant what he said and he would keep his word. But I also knew he loved me. I felt very, very secure with him. I had some spankings, but I never resented them because when he did it, he was not angry with me. If he was, he didn't show it. And I also knew I had it coming. So I had nothing to resent. I got spankings. I don't know how many, maybe 3 or 4 or 5. I don't remember, but I got a few. But I never got a beating. In today's world, people don't know there's a difference between a spanking and a beating. A spanking is an act of love. A beating is an out-of-control parent destroying his child. They just happen to look similar, but they are very, very different. All right, back to Laddie. So I am back riding him now. Been all last summer and all last fall. I was trail riding once or twice a week, and I have been enjoying being with him again. And it has been a great blessing that I feel is a godsend. And So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Spankings are good. Beatings are evil. There is a difference. It depends on our intention. Okay, have a good day.